Matthew, your question is next.
How you doing, Tom? So I have kind of like two separate questions, but the second one should be quicker. I remember years ago that um, Elliot Edge, who introduced me to you, he was listening to you, and you said something that if you do something really strange, that the system will recalculate itself. And he asked you, and you said like, don't speak for 48 to 72 hours. And I don't know, I always thought that was interesting. But right now I'm doing something that's really weird for me, which is I'm going to go on a vacation for like 6 weeks. And I've never like been outside of my home for 3 weeks, let alone been alone for that long. And then immediately after that, I'm going to move out and live on my own. And prior to that, I quit my job. So I'm really trying to, recalculate how I look at myself and my life and all that. And it's been extremely terrifying, like constant anxiety and fear and nervousness. Um, and like very little like pleasure or excitement. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if you could speak to that, like lots of changes at once. And then the second one is about politics, but it's not contentious. So I don't know.
Let's do the first one first. Of course, the fact that it's terrifying has to do with insecurity and not having much confidence. Another way to look at it, and whether you can get past the insecurity and lack of confidence, but the right way to look at it is that it's an adventure. It's going to lead you someplace, and that someplace is going to be different. You're getting out of the rut, you're changing everything, you're going to end up someplace else, and let's find out what that someplace else is. Let's just find out. It's an adventure you're going on. Now, you're young, and no matter what you decide and where you end up, if you don't like it, you can always change it. It's not like, okay, you've made these decisions now, that's set you on a path for the rest of your life that'll never change. And did I do the right thing? And I mean, that kind of an attitude is taking it all way too seriously. You're young, you can change your direction and what you do and how you do it a dozen times. And most people do change things a lot. Okay, but you've gotten comfortable in a rut, and you've learned how to get by in it. You know how to survive in this rut. But the survival isn't enough for you. You want more than that. So you want to break out of that rut. Well, okay, you don't know where it's going to go. That's the way it is. And if you try to figure out exactly where it's going to go, you'll drive yourself insane because you can't figure it out. You don't have a crystal ball that tells you the future. So, no sense just spinning your wheels trying to figure it out. Just say, I'm going to take it one step at a time. I'm going to think about each step before I my foot out there and take that step. I'm going to think about it. Does it feel right or wrong or what? And if it feels like, well, okay, let's go see what happens, then do it. And then take the next step. But it'll lead you someplace. It may not lead you to where you think you're going now, but that's life. Your whole life is like that. Not just this particular adventure because you're breaking out of an old rut. Your whole life is like that. You never know where it's going and where it's going to take you and what's going to happen next. You in your life, over the next 40 or 50 years, you're going to make a lot of changes, decisions. You thought you were going this way and you're going to go that way. You'll get to a fork in the road and you'll make a choice, and that choice will change all the rest of your opportunities and choices after that. That's the way it is. So keep in mind, Matthew, that it isn't the result that really matters. It's what you learn along the way toward that result. Because wherever you are, you can always start off in another direction and change, particularly when you're as young as you are. You got lots and lots of changes and options. There's lots of things you can do differently. Even when you're as old as I am, there's lots of forks in the road, lots of major choices that you can make that are different. There's still lots of possibilities, things that you could do, changes you can make. So it's not like hope I made the right decision and don't ruin the rest of my life. You can't ruin the rest of your life. The rest of your life hasn't happened yet, and there'll be a whole different set of choices than you can even imagine. So it's no sense worrying about it. Do what you think you have to do. Learn from it. Good choice, bad choice. Figure it out. Make the choice. Live long enough in that choice to see whether it is good choice or bad choice. Keep going. Do something else. Your whole life's like that. And if you're afraid of it, you get anxiety from it, you'll just have ulcers. You'll be making yourself ill with anxiety. Life is like that, and it's uncertain. We deal with the things we have to deal with. And there isn't any plot that we get into. We can't move on and do something better. It's just, so have that, see if you can't get that attitude to replace the one of, oh no, what am I doing? I can't be sure that this is going to work out. Therefore, it scares me. Well, not being sure whether it's going to work out or not is life. They're never sure about how life is going to work out. Never. And that's probably a good thing. That gives us a lot more chances to make choices and learn and grow. Think of the whole thing as an adventure and don't worry about it. It'll all turn out all right in the end. If what you make is bad choices, well, that's okay. You can turn around and start making better choices.
Super helpful. Thank you for that pep talk, Tom. And that does center me. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. The second one is you had a recent talk on News from the Heart. I believe the video title was "What is Love?" And you were talking about politics and how there's a great deal of complaining and this coalescing of negativity. I was at the Rage Against the War Machine protest in DC on Sunday, and it really had me thinking after you said that it is a good thing for us to take political action and to, I guess, identify solutions. But I'd like to know more what you think about that, and particularly about American politics. I'm not going to get into specific issues, but there's just so much that it feels like requires some kind of anger or galvanizing, electrifying type of emotion, like, uh, I don't want to get too specific, but like you said specifically in the video that the issue is that we don't want to operate by force and we need to grow out of that. But so many companies are whittling down what our information that we see is. And in America in the past, we've had anti-monopoly laws and we've taken action like that. How can people not be upset about it when they find out?
Well, the way people cannot be upset about it is to not be so fearful and not be so self-centered. That's how. The thing is that, rage against the war machine. All right. Now, I would think that I would agree with a war machine is probably not a very good machine. War's not a very good thing. But rage is also not a very good thing. So to me, that's two negatives. Let's us be more negative than them, or our power, if we can be more powerful, if we can get enough power that we can force them to change what they're doing, well, all of that is control, power, force. That's the way we work, control, power, force. We need more power. We need more control. We need to be able to force things to be right, the right way, our way, whoever you are, no matter what side you're on, what direction you go, your way is the right way. So that doesn't work. So the rage is the negative part. And if you're going to go out and rage, then you probably will do more harm than good. Now, you'll probably do a little bit of both. You'll probably do some good in the sense that you maybe will attract attention to the fact that war's not a good thing. On the other hand, you're going to also create a lot of tension that hardens itself toward people that would rage against the war machine because you're angry. makes them angry. You mean it personally, they take it personally. It doesn't help. So, yes, you should get involved. The very first discussion we had here tonight was go out and get involved and, connect, become an actor in the process. It's only through by making choices that you grow up. So make choices, and definitely you should be political in the sense that you have views. Well, get out there and demonstrate if you like, but don't rage. Don't get angry, because if you're angry and upset and in a rage, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. Or at least, at best, you're part of both. There's some part of you that's part of the solution and some part of you that's part of the problem. And it's better to not be part of the problem at all. So, yes, you can do things. You can talk to people. You can write letters. You can write books. You can go stand on street corners and hold signs. There's lots of things you can do. You can get in discussions. You can try to change people's minds without anger. But see, now you use the word galvanizing, without anger to galvanize people. Anger is what galvanizes. Anger is what we use to manipulate. So if I want a whole bunch of people to show up on a street corner and hold up a sign because my employer won't give me something I want, well, if I could get 100,000 people to get really angry about it, I'd have them out there. But if they're not angry about it, nobody's going to bother. So we happen to be very low quality beings for the most part. And what gets us going is anger, fear, self-centeredness. Those are the things that stir us up, get us going. Anybody who wants to more control, power, and force would like to get people angry. That's the way you do it. So if you want people to vote for you, you try to get them angry at the other guy. We manipulate people with fear. So that's our culture. So we think that, well, I can't get anybody to come out and hold the sign with me about, war isn't nice unless I get them angry. If I can get them angry, then I'll get a whole bunch of us out here and we'll then be a force. Maybe doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, getting out there and being, letting your voice be heard is a good thing. Letting that be an angry voice is not a good thing. So how do you deal in our world without getting angry? You just have to grow up. That's how you deal with it. You have to look at the world and say, well, this world has a lot of dysfunctional people with a lot of fear, a lot of self-centeredness, and it's just where they are. They're doing the best they can with what they got. That's the way they are. They're going to be self-centered and fearful because they're self-centered and fearful. That's the way they're going to act. I'm not going to act that way. I'm going to be part of the solution. So it's just an individual choice. And when there are a large number of people who don't have to be angry to go pick up a sign or, write a letter to the editor or do whatever they want to do, they can do it just because they think it's a good thing to do, because they think it'll be helpful, because they have ideas and they want to share them. Well, great. Now we will have transformed into a society where people can actually discuss issues and come to conclusions instead of just holler at each other. That will be a good step forward. But we're not there yet. Now all we can do is point fingers at each other and scream and holler and jump up and down and generally act like, irritated monkeys. That's the stage we're at. We jump up and down, show our teeth, and beat our chest and do this kind of stuff and create fear and try to get other people as frightened as possible so that they'll join us. And it just happens to be where we are. That's the state of humanity now. Fairly low quality of consciousness, but that'll change. And the way you help change it is to change yourself. You can't go out and change anybody else. So just change yourself and do the best you can with the environment you got to live in. That's what you can do, and do it positively. Whatever you do it positively. Do it because it's the right thing to do, not because you're angry about it. But in our culture, people aren't motivated by the right thing to do. People are motivated by control, power, force, and that is always run through anger and fighting. But we'll get there. We'll do better. The best we can do is contribute to the solution and not to the problem.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Tom. I think a lot of people are, worried with surveillance and everything of the world becoming Orwell's nightmare. But I guess, if the rage is against or the anger is toward a war machine, it's made up of lots of people. And just being angry about it or informed constantly doesn't seem like it's going to change things. Like you said in the past, organizations change organically from within themselves. You told me a long time ago, when I asked you on Facebook about the child trafficking in India and what someone over here, finding out about it could do. And you said that if we were to just throw money at the situation, or if we were to, go in there and try to, take these little girls and stop it, it really wouldn't make the significant change that the culture needs, because that would be meddling, and it has to change from within. And I guess that's what we really have to wait for.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you did any of those things, you'd make it worse, not better. Because when you go in and meddle, you create resentment. You create negative things. So to work on things, some things require force. It's not that force is never the right thing. Some things require force, but force needs to be done very judiciously and very carefully if it's going to be functional. Otherwise, you go busting in someplace because you know what's right and they don't, and you're going to change things. You tend to make things worse. You tend to make things, worse than they were before, not making things better. So when you use force, you have to be very smart about how you do that or what the situation is. Because mostly these situations have a lot of deep roots. Like you say, it's not just that there is a bad actor, and if you got that bad actor out of the way, everything would be all right. You got a whole culture. You have attitudes. You have investments in those bad attitudes. And you can't just reach in, grab that, and fix it. People have to fix it by changing their attitudes. So you want to make them all better actors. Let's go over there and force them to stop doing that stuff and act better. You've made them act better in this format, but they'll find some other format to express themselves in. You see, it doesn't fix the problem. It actually makes the problem more invisible and therefore harder to fix.
Thanks. That's very helpful. And it would be to eliminate war. I mean, obviously there's so much that the entire world needs to learn about this. It's like, saying, but we wouldn't have any strife anymore if we just eliminated all the problems. So yeah, obviously, but we're not there yet. So
right.
Thank you, Tom.
And the idea of saying, well, the way we eliminate war is to fight everybody who wants to war. You say, well, you just started another war. What you need to do, you don't eliminate war by fighting. This idea is not a good idea. Doesn't work like that.
Vinicius, we do have time for your question. I wasn't sure.
All right. Hi, Tom. So the first time that I read your book about some 10 years ago, and you had this aside on the AI guy, and by the time I was like, oh, this is in a pretty far away time, right? At the time, I thought that the AI technology wasn't here. It wasn't enough to have the AI guy. And lo and behold, 10 years now, we have ChatGPT, right? Which is of course a language model, and it doesn't have any necessarily a sense of choice, but it does mimic what a person can say very well, and can do stuff that is actually, it looks like it's sentient, right? So what is missing from this language model for it so consciousness can go into it and play it, let's say. So it has to have a sense of evolutionary drive, and it has to have a sense of learning, and what else it doesn't need so consciousness
Okay.
to play in an AI like that.
Okay, a couple of things to say about that. One is that myself and another fellow, Victor, are putting out a series of discussions on conscious computers and that sort of thing. And I think Donna will tell you that she's put out one of those has been released out to the public, and she's working on another one. And there's going to be a series of 3 or 4 of those. However, they're broken out. It's hard to tell because when Victor and I get to talking, it often goes like 4 hours, and you can't put out a 4-hour video or nobody will look at it. So, you know, there may be lots of videos that come out of this, but that's the subject. And we're going to try to delve into that subject in detail. So that's it's just starting to come out now. But to answer your question directly, what's missing is awareness. Consciousness is defined as awareness with a choice. Okay, that means a free will choice. Well, this language bot has a free will choice in the sense that based on its experience, it comes up with some kind of choice of how it's going to respond. And it isn't a choice that anybody could really guess. You know, it's on its own. So it's got a free will choice, and you get that free will choice just out of having the choice making, one, be based on individual learning, and also to be complex enough that nobody really has any insight into what's going on there, how it works. So half of it, the choice, is there. The part that's not there is awareness. Now, it can mimic awareness to some degree and can be pretty good at it. And of course, it can really put its foot in its mouth and say some things that are really wrong too, because it doesn't really know. It doesn't have the awareness. So it's doing the best it can, given the models and the information and the programming it has. Okay, to solve this problem, I'll grab some of this stuff and some of that stuff, and I'll throw it together, and I'll turn it into sentences in English that are all good sentences. They all have verbs and nouns and adverbs, and I'll make it sound like a real human being's talking. So they've got enough tools that they can probably they're just starting now, so they're kind of wild and woolly present, but good 5 years or 10 years, and you'll see that these things will be trained to be very effective at certain tasks, probably very narrow tasks, not broad general tasks. Like, tell me, what was it that destroyed the Roman Empire? That's too big. Here, sort this mail for me, and sort my email when it comes in, and put everything that I really need to look at in one pile and things I don't in the other. Now, probably could be learn to do that sort of thing. So they're going to specialize, and they're going to probably become more narrow in scope as they get smarter, and the ability to train them and so on gets better and better. So I should suspect that a decade from now, there'll be all sorts of jobs that they'll be doing routinely, little tasks that they're pretty good at. Yeah, they'll screw up once in a while, but they'll do more good, like a spell checker. It screws up once in a while, and it really gives you something, bizarre, but for the most part, you really like them because the spell checker really helps more than it hurts. They're going to go like that too. So how does it get awareness, self-awareness, where it's actually conscious? Well, the only way for it to get awareness is the same way that your human body gets awareness, is that the larger conscious system looks at that computer or that piece of software and says, that software has free will choice. If those choices are interesting enough that the IUOC could learn and grow from making those choices, then And IUOC would log on and make those choices. And now it's conscious. That's the only way you get consciousness. You can't build consciousness. You have to set up a platform that the LCS says, oh, it would be a good thing to put a piece of consciousness in there to make those choices, because the choices that it makes are choices that will help a piece of consciousness grow up by making. Okay, so now let's say your computer, all it does is play chess, and it's a brilliant chess player, beat everybody, best chess player ever. But are those the kind of choices that are going to help an entity grow up? Probably not. There's not a lot of ethics. It's just winning. There's not a lot of morality. There's not much anything of growth value there. So just because the computer can do something really amazing, better than people can do it, doesn't necessarily mean that that's something that the LCS would want to put a piece of consciousness, logged into to give it consciousness. There's not much to learn from playing chess other than strategy of chess, which is nice, but it's not going to help you grow up and become love. So it just depends. When the platforms are there and the application is there and the job that this thing has and the choices it has to make are such that consciousness would benefit, would make good learning choices for a consciousness, then the consciousness will log on and you'll have a conscious computer. So what it's missing is awareness. Awareness is awareness of self, awareness of the environment, awareness of kind of what's going on around you and why, the awareness of, so if somebody's asking you questions like with the Bing thing, you'd have to have an awareness of what it is they really wanted and what would be suitable and what's unsuitable and what would not be helpful. So all of that, if Bing actually had a human being there and you called up, or you dialed up and you got a human being that was an expert in searching, well, what would they do? They wouldn't just grab some of this, grab some of that, throw it together and hand it to you, They'd think, well, what is this person's problem? And what do they really need to know? And what would be able to help them in solving their problem? And then it goes out and finds that sort of thing and puts it together. So that's an awareness. That's what's missing. This just goes through the motions to do what it does. And because of clever programming, mostly what it does is pretty good, but it's not actually aware of what it's doing. And it only gets that awareness if consciousness logs on.
And what if you were to facilitate or program some sort of awareness of the model on itself, let's say? So you can say to the model, hey, here's your weights, here's how your network is wired, here's how your programming is done. And now you have the chance to modify yourself to grow up, or there's also maybe you have to give a certain evolutionary drive to the thing. So it has like this gumption to go and change itself. Then would you facilitate awareness or would you be creating awareness, or that's...
No, it's not going to do that. You're not going to let it evolve until it evolves consciousness. What you do is it would make, let's say, more and more meaningful choices to the point that a consciousness would want to log on. That's how that works. So it's not that it actually can evolve. You can't take a piece of software and hardware and let it evolve to consciousness. All you can do is let it evolve. And it's not just it's what, what it's used for, the situation it's put in, and the kind of choices that it makes. That's what's key. So it's not just a thing it can do in itself. And to illustrate that, let's look at the difference between an expert system, okay, and an AI. There's a difference. An expert system is just, everything's just programmed, right? There is no free will. Everything is programmed. So if we consider, let's say we have a robot that looks like a human, and it's an expert system. And we are now to the point that our computers are 1,000,000 times faster than they are today. And our data, we can crunch down to a 1/1,000,000th the size that we have today. In other words, I can take something the size of a gnat's eyebrow and have, 100 gigabytes stored in it. If we get to that point, and if we had people who were going to spend years and years and years developing the programming, we could end up theoretically with an expert system that you couldn't tell from a human, because that system would just know that much. So no matter what you said or whatever, it would be able to go back and find a pat phrase and a pat thing that had already been calculated, and it would be just perfect. Well, so it's possible to create that, in theory. Practically, probably not so possible, because life is so complex that an expert system to have just the right answer, for every possible situation, it's very unlikely. You'd have to. It's probably impossible to actually do that. But if you did that, you would have an expert system, totally algorithmic, right? No free will, no consciousness, nothing. Just clever programming and lots of information. You could have something that looked like a human, talked like a human, walked like a human, was hard to tell from a human. But it wouldn't be conscious, even though it goes through all the motions and would seem like it was conscious. Because there is no test that will, with 100% certainty, tell you that something's conscious. There is no test, nor will there ever be a test. You see, there isn't a thing. You can't stick a piece of litmus paper in it and see if it comes out and it says conscious, There isn't anything like that. So would we interact with that robot that was just an expert system like it was a person? Sure. Sure, it may be your babysitter, maybe your boss, maybe your worker, maybe your doctor. If it was that good and had that much information capability, you'd interact with it like it would be any human. And would you let it vote in elections? Why not? It's as smart as you are, probably smarter than you are, probably understand things better than you do. So the thing is, there is no test for consciousness. It's when things act like they're conscious, then we'll act with them like they're conscious. But there's a difference between being conscious and being a expert system. One's algorithmic, one isn't. One is predictable. One will always give you the same answer to the exact same stimulus. The other one doesn't. So there is a difference. And that difference, that this computer's conscious, means that the LCS has logged in a piece of itself to play that role. You can't just develop it. You can't evolve to it. You have to create a platform that the system will supply the consciousness for. You can't create consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental. It's a fundamental thing. It's not something you can build. So that's kind of the basics there. That it's impossible to tell. So when this little language thing that we've got now starts doing things that have important moral and ethical and choices that affect other people, lots of other people, then probably the system will have an individuated beat of consciousness log on. And now that will be a conscious computer. And one day it wasn't, the next day it is. It's that sort of thing. It just will become conscious because the system now has a piece of consciousness making those choices for it. So that's how that is going to work. These machines are going to work for us. Whatever they do, sort mail or anything else, they're going to do tasks. And when those tasks develop to the point that they're significant tasks for growing up, then we'll probably get consciousness involved if the system needs more seats, which is another thing. If the system has all the seats it needs, then they may always stay limited and never actually become aware because the system just doesn't need any more seats.
Thank you, everyone. Wonderful questions. Thank you so much.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. We will continue to post videos for free on my YouTube channel, but please understand, these videos are expensive to produce. They represent many thousands of hours of production and editing, as well as all the necessary audiovisual equipment, computers, and software. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. It would be very much appreciated. The links are in the description below. Thank you.